What's up everybody? So check this out. I'm on the Suzuki 1000 today. Reason being, I started getting the Aprilia ready for a track day this Sunday, which is pretty involved and it's no longer street legal. So you guys can look forward to a track day video coming up next week. But the real reason for today's video is I just recently stumbled across an article in Cycle News. It's basically titled something like California to kill off gas-powered vehicles. And I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. I am 100% against electric motorcycles. I hate them. And there's been multiple articles magazines do on these electric bikes that, you know, it's like they're in support of it. I'm like, it baffles me. I'm like, if you love motorcycles, how can you want to lose fuel burning motorcycles? To me, an electric motorcycle just takes away all the cool dynamics of what riding a motorcycle is. I mean, to not have an engine, not have a clutch, not have a shifter, not have that sound when you start the bike, when you're ripping the bike, when you're high on the RPMs. I mean, is there anything cool about a motorcycle that sounds like a whining belt?
An RS to the 10.
It's terrible. I don't get it. I don't get anybody that supports that kind of technology. I don't think if you love motorcycles, you can't love the idea of an electric motorcycle. And I think a lot of people are with me on this one. I mean, the proof is in the numbers. If you look at the number of aftermarket exhaust companies, there's more aftermarket exhaust companies than any other aftermarket product out there. The number one aftermarket product that people put on their bike is an exhaust system. They're not doing that because they want more power. They want it to look better and they want it to sound much better. You know, you might get some minor power gains, but how many of us can really ride our sport bike to its full potential anyways? So what California is trying to do is get the emissions down 80% to what they were in 1990 by 2050. You know, that sounds a long ways away, but it just gives you an idea of the future of gas-powered motorcycles is greatly in danger. And California is not the only, I mean, California is just a state. What about the United States? What about the world? It's actually worse in the world where they're trying to get rid of gas-powered motorcycles. For instance, the Netherlands by 2020 is trying to do completely away with gas-powered motorcycles. That's only just over 2 years away. Germany by 2030 is trying to do away with gas-powered motorcycles. Scotland by 2032, and France and the UK by 2042. If I were you guys, I'd be pretty freaking scared, man. You're not gonna have gas-powered motorcycles in the very near future. The reason California has different emissions codes is because they did this thing called the Clean Air Act back in 1970 that gives California its own control over its emissions. I don't really understand, and I'm not a politician, but that's why California always has stiffer regulations than the rest of the United States. And so what our moron Governor Brown will do is, what he can do is he can go through the DMV and say, okay, when you register your vehicle, unless it's electric, you cannot take it on California freeways. It's like this little workaround they do to try to eliminate gas-powered motorcycles or vehicles in general. California is trying to ban gas-powered vehicles by somewhere in the range of 2030 through 2040. And you know, people, that's just not that far away. Obviously, you know, you couldn't just do it right now. It's gonna have to be a process. There's not enough charging stations. There's really long charge times to charge the batteries, and battery disposal. You know, you can't just take those things out and dump them like normal trash. So other than the dynamic of electric motorcycle being completely lame, let me just give you a reference. They took a really high-end electric motorcycle, sport bike, and they had this guy at a motorcycle shop take it out on a test track and asked him what he thought when he got done. And what he said blew my mind.
You have no concept of how fast you're going whatsoever. When you're moving, the bike disappears, the road disappears.
What? I don't want my bike to disappear. I want to feel my bike. I want to feel the power. I want to feel the exhilaration. I want to feel the excitement. The road disappeared. what does that even mean? I mean, I want to feel the bike and I want to feel the road together. I want the rest of the world to disappear, not the bike and the road. The two things he said disappeared are the two things that all of us want to feel when we ride a motorcycle. So that right there kind of tells you how lame they are. Aside from the dynamic of electric versus gas powered, let's dig into the meat of the emissions, because it's not as black and white as you think. An electric motorcycle produces about 25% amount of emissions as a gas-powered motorcycle, but it's not as simple as that. I'll tell you why. But let's look at the true emissions problem that motorcycles play in the world. Let's just talk about California, for instance. There are 600,000 motorcycles in California. That's creating 1% of the miles traveled in California. Now, that might even be high because just because they're going off how many people own these vehicles, most people log way more miles in their cars and trucks than they do on their motorcycle. They may own a motorcycle, but that bike will sit and sit and sit. So 1% may even be high. But really, when you think about it, motorcycles, come on, they don't play that big of a part in creating emissions. It's like, well, why don't you guys just focus on cars and trucks, because most of those people could give a crap whether their vehicle is gas or electric, where motorcycle guys were very passionate about having a motor, you know, that burns spark and makes sound, all that cool, exciting stuff. The thing is, right now, motorcycles with the emissions they have, they're 90% cleaner than they were 30 years ago. But here's the flip side of EVs, which are electronic vehicles. Just because an EV creates less emissions going down the road, on the flip side, they create more emissions trying to produce the vehicle. And the reason being is the vehicles have to be lighter because the batteries weigh 500 pounds? Something like that. So they have to use rare materials to build the vehicle to make them light. The problem with these rare materials is they have to come from these, you know, mines in other countries. Let me give you an example of how hard it is to get this rare material out of the planet. There's a rare mine in China, and what they do to get the rare material out is they dig an 8-foot hole in this like a clay material. Sorry guys, I've been dealing with this friggin' head cold. But what they do before they remove the material is they have to pour aluminum sulfate into the hole to dissolve the clay so they can remove all the material. Then once they get the material out, they take it through several acid baths, and when all is said and done, only 0.2% of the material removed from the planet is rare metal that they can use. That means 99.8% of the material they removed is now toxic waste that they put back into the earth. So that's not good for the planet. And that's just one example. Now let's switch off to energy, you know, powering power plants. Many of the power plants are powered by burning coal. And, you know, they'd have to step up. You know, we'd have to build more of them, or they'd have to produce more energy, which is producing more emissions. So getting that electricity to the car would in turn create more emissions. On one hand, you have a vehicle that creates more emissions, but on the flip side, you've got more emissions being created to actually build that vehicle. Like I said, it's not so black and white. Now here's another thing that really pisses me off. The expansion of population in my area is just ridiculous. The freeways are totally crammed already, and they just keep building more and more, not even homes, apartment complexes that hold out hundreds of people in a much smaller area. They're popping up everywhere, and you already can't get anywhere on our freeways. So if California's got such a big emission problem, why do you keep bringing more and more people in? That in itself is going to bring up the emissions problem, and we already can't drive on our freeways. So you've got these moronic city planners who probably got their hands in the pockets of the builders, you know, making money. They don't care, man. They don't care about our population problem. They don't care about emissions problems. They want to dump that problem off on all the manufacturers of cars and motorcycles while they just keep bringing more and more people on in. I'm at a point now where I hate California. I hate living out here. I like that there's cool stuff to do, but the politics and the regulations and the taxes, property taxes, state taxes, we're still freaking broke. That's getting a little bit off the track of what we're talking about, but bottom line is, people, we all should be worried about the future of our motorcycles. Unless you're totally down with, oh, electric bike, that sounds cool. I'm like, I think it sounds very lame, and I'm really scared, and pissed off. Another thing to think about is racing. I was at Laguna Seca for the MotoGP one year, and they had a special division with the electric bikes, and it was the weirdest thing to see these guys buzzing by, and all you hear is like the whine of the motorcycle. You know, imagine going to see World Superbike, which I say World Superbike because they're basically production machines that are modified, and there's no sound. And all the AMA levels, you know, Road America, that whole series, would be silent. Another reason it's good to have a bike that makes noise is safety in traffic. Not just lane splitting, but just around town. This bike's fairly quiet. And when I'm on my Aprilia or my Harley, people definitely hear me coming and get out of my way and come over on me less often. So having a bike that makes noise is definitely safer. Anyways, yeah, no matter where you live, the future of motorcycling is bleak. I hope I'm long gone and dead before that happens, because I would just, motorcycling, it's who I am. You know, I'm all about bikes. If they made electric bikes only tomorrow, I guarantee you I wouldn't buy one just out of principle. I'd be like, no, I'm not buying into that. I'm gonna ride around on my bike with a motor, let you guys try to catch me, and I'm not stopping. What do you guys think about all that? I mean, are you down with electric bikes? Do you even care? But I want to, you know, let's make a conversation out of it. I want to hear what you guys have to say. The next video you see from me is probably going to be my track day video. That's only a few days away. I'm really looking forward to that. My first time on the track on the Aprilia, and I'm going to take you guys through the whole deal. I'm going to take you through what it took to do a track day, what it cost, bike setup, what goes on at the track with the riders meeting. There's just a lot to it. I hope you like the video. If you're not a subscriber, you might want to make that happen. Hit the notification bell for future videos, and I will see you guys next video.